this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time. Probably the last time this year. There are no more shows. I've got no more plans on buying any more orchids. The problem with thinking about buying, there's actually some flipping good plants on eBay at the moment. But you never know quite what the weather's going to do. I mean, at the moment we're having quite a mild patch, but it wasn't that long ago we were down to freezing every night. You know, that's not an ideal time to have orchids in the post, especially if they're eBay purchases. You've got a sort of undetermined time that they're going to be in the post, or even how long it's going to be before they actually post them. So I probably won't get any more this year, not as far as I know. But we did get these few. Oh, that's quite nice. It's a new type of wine I'm trying. Well, not new to me totally, it's Beaujolais, but I don't normally buy that, but we're giving it a go. Now this one's out here purely on the grounds I'm curious. This actually looks like it's in quite good media, but I'm nosy, I want to see what's in the pot. This one, no decision, it's coming out of the pot. Roots are failing basically, and we've got 2 bits of plant in here. I need to know what's going on under this lot. It's in that fibrous stuff again. The problem is with this fibrous stuff, although it is very good if you are capable of controlling your watering, if you're a bit heavy-handed with the old water, this stuff can stay wet and soggy for a very... Ooh. I was just going to say you could grow mushrooms in there. I wouldn't be half surprised if there are some. But there's been some rotting, that's what I'm after. And there is a separate piece of plant in here. I want to get that separated off and see if it's worth saving. It does actually, it does feel like it's joined on. But it's not joined on in such a way that it's any good. The bottom of that bulb is soggy. So is that one. That would leave one tiny little new growth with no decent roots, so we'll discard that straight away. So you can come off. And anything else I see that's got any signs of that orangey coloured rot is coming off, because I want to start this plant clean. And then it has a good chance of pulling on. Because the roots aren't quite as bad as I expected. There are some viable roots in here. It's a pity it was, what's happened is this area here of the plant has grown away from the media, and the roots have failed prior to hitting the media because the plant part was just too high up. That's what's happened. See, there's another rotten pseudo bulb there, that one's soggy as well. It's got to have a good clean up. That's really all that's required. The roots are not as bad as I thought they were going to be. Some of these are viable down here. This isn't bad. There's a little area here that's actually got quite good roots. And it hasn't got the sphagnum plug in the middle of it, which is the bonus. They're always a bit of a nuisance to get out. But what I've got to do is look at what I've got and what I want to keep. Now let's come back around this side again. That's not a lot of good. That's debatable. That's a good bulb with good leaves. So I want to keep that one. But I also have to come around this side of the plant and look at the next large healthy bulb that has bloomed. Yeah? That is a very good bulb. No sign of any rotting really. That's not bad at all. And that's the one that's got the new growth. But if you look at the progression on the horizontal plane, it's getting higher all the time. And it is possible that this new growth is still capable of pushing out some more roots. And I can help it by removing the leaf that's shielding it. That exposes the base. It'll be far more likely to push out some roots now. All the sheaths are coming off because the bottom of this plant is incredibly wet. I don't want to leave anything on here that's capable of staying wet and getting soggy. Clean up the base. Now to get that planted and make that a successful bulb, it's got to do that. And as soon as it does that, that becomes useless. To get it in the smallest pot possible, That's not very good either. That wasn't really attached in anything sensible. So that's the plant I'm going to keep, and that I think will be successful. There's some good parts to this plant, and we have got some viable roots. So a good clean up, and plant it slightly at an angle like that, probably like that, so that I've got the angle, but this one has a chance to straighten up, and then hopefully some room in the pot for some for the next lot of new growth. Yeah. Now this is Miltonia Sunset Glory. It's supposed to be yellow. Now that tag could be written wrong. That could be the standard Miltonia Sunset with a named clone. So one that was a little bit different to the rest, in which case it should have quotes around it. As opposed to, it could be a totally new hybrid called Miltonia Sunset Glory. Yeah? I'll look it up. It's not important, quite honestly. It's a Miltonia. It's one of the larger style Miltonias rather than one of the miniature ones. And to all intents and purposes, you are growing an Oncidium. There's so little difference, it's not worth talking about. So in the sink with you. Now, let's be curious and see what's in here. I might get away with this just lifting out. Oh, I'm very glad I lifted it out. See, even when you think you've got good media, that is absolutely full of mould. Look at it. So again, really, and that's from a reputable supplier. That's actually from a Kearns. Make sure it gets public if you're going to sell stuff like that. Sorry, but you know, no hiding place, mate. Absolutely covered in mould. I had a suspicion, I don't know, sixth sense, whatever you call it, because on the surface that bark looked really good. Well, it ain't. Well, it actually might not be the bark. I mean, it could just be a mould outbreak in good bark. You don't only get mould outbreaks in old bark. But either way, that needs an incredibly good clean up now, and that'll have to have the hydrogen peroxide on it to make sure I get rid of that mould and any spores left behind. That should do the job, and getting it in some nice clean media. It's got a good root system, don't get me wrong. That is an excellent little root system for a twinkle. Oh, I forgot to say what it was. Oncidium twinkle. Well, it's effectively a twinkle, but it's a named version. It's Siku Marguerite, and it's Cheyenne Sea Glory. But effectively, to all intents and purposes, it's a twinkle. I think what it actually is, if you want to be pedantic, it's a twinkle crossed back with Oncidium sotoanum, which is the parent of one of the twinkles. Sorry, my mouth won't work. One of the parents of the twinkles. There we go. Came out right eventually. That's a nice little root system. Happy with that. Now this plant looks like this has been grown on from a seedling. Do you look at the tiny little pseudo bulbs here? And then it started growing off in different directions, and gradually round this side of the plant the bulbs have got bigger. That's a lovely healthy plant. But how long it would have stayed healthy with the roots in that mould, I don't know. I mean, this is some pretty serious stuff. So I'm glad that's gone. Right, clean up. Get rid of the mess and I'll be back. I never decide on these type of plants what sort of medium I'm going to use until I've seen the root system and how big the root system is to decide what size pot I can cram it in. Because these seem to do an awful lot better if they're crammed in the pot, nice and cosy and tight. But until I've seen the root system, I can't make that decision. And until I make the decision on the pot size, I don't make the decision on the type of bark I'm going to use. As in what grade, small, medium, large, mixture of whether it's having some moss. So I'll get all that sorted out and I'll be back. Okay, this little plant has cleaned up really nicely. Well pleased. I haven't touched any of the roots, I've just cleaned them off. They had a good spray with the hydrogen peroxide, which in theory will get rid of the mould, and the fact that it's going in clean media that will have some sphagnum in there as well. That'll should stop it ever reoccurring again. Nice little plant, well pleased with that. Wasn't happy with the mould in the bark though, but yeah, I mean that could have just been transport and storage, possibly a bit cold, or anyway, it's cleaned up nicely. That's the good bit. So that's that one. This one, I cut off all those dark brown dead looking things, endearingly trying to masquerade as roots. What's left isn't that bad. These are viable roots, they're not all squidgy, and some of these turned out to be quite long when they were untangled. So that's not as bad a root system as I at first thought. There's some damage down this pseudo bulb. Looks like there might have been a slug got at it at some time. It could have just been, because this is the lower leaf effectively, it could have just split due to the size of the bulb. In other words, the leaf had grown to its full size and then the bulb expanded some more. There is a possibility. But nonetheless, it's cleaned up reasonably well. And what I'm hoping is that this new growth here is still capable of producing some new roots, because it's already done its root system and most of that failed because it didn't get into the media. So I'm hoping it'll have another go. It's unlikely to get new roots off of this bulb, that is an older one, but this is still possible, and quite honestly so is that. It's still possible to get some more roots out of these bulbs, especially this one. But we'll get that in a nice tight pot and see where we go from there. And I couldn't find any reference to Miltonia Sunset Glory, so I think somebody's made that up. make it sound a bit special when it probably is just Miltonia Sunset. Right, what I've got is, this is a mix of small and medium bark. Not that much medium bark, but I just want the ability for there to be a bit of airspace. Now, whereas I said small and medium bark, I lied, because in amongst this is some lumps of stuff that is neither. And this Orchiata bark, this latest lot, is not of such good quality as previous stuff. It's got a lot more bits of grass and twigs and non-bark type wood. I mean, look, that's a lump of wood, that's not bark at all. So I always just have a pick through, you know, and get sticks out and things like that, things that are going to obviously break down a lot quicker. Just do what I can. I'm never going to get it all, but if I can see it and take it out, I've at least alleviated that little piece getting in a pot. But yeah, it's the same with the moss actually. I was talking about this in a previous video. The moss that I use, I've been using for years. It's New Zealand moss, made by, or produced by Bees Grow. It's always been good quality premium sphagnum moss. But recently, I'm pretty sure it's coming back to life. Zombie moss. And as such, the treatment processing must have changed, because it always used to be dead as a doornail and never resurrected. Whereas lately it could just be algae, I could be wrong, but it does look like it's coming back to life in some circumstances. And the circumstances seem to be in pots that are kept, in the main, constantly moist. It just seems to reactivate the stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that, that is a bonus. Live sphagnum moss is a lot better for your roots than the dead stuff. It's got properties that are quite important. If you can get clean live sphagnum moss, well, use it. Why pay money for stuff if you can collect some sensibly? That's the real thing, you know. That needs to be clean, needs to get all the bugs out of it and stuff. But yeah, I think that'll do. And that's going to get I've got far too much there actually. I'm going to take some out because once I put the moss in there, it's not so easy. Yeah, that's about right. You notice the scientific calculation? Yeah, that's about right. I still haven't put the moss in there yet. I'm putting moss in here because both of these would prefer to stay constantly moist. Evenly moist, that magic thing that's absolutely impossible to recreate. Evenly moist. When you water it, it's soaking wet, and then it starts to dry, and it's not soaking wet anymore. And if you leave it long enough, it'll be totally dry. And the idea with these type of plants, these type of roots, is to water it just before it gets to totally dry. And it needs to get a lot closer to totally dry in the winter if you've got those lower temperatures. Now if you're growing in a home and you don't ever get lower temperatures, then take no notice of that. Keep them constantly moist. But I do have to worry about low temperatures in the grow room for my resting dendrobiums. And quite honestly, over all of my orchids, they take priority. I like those more than anything. Even though they only bloom once a year, they're a bit fiddly, but I love them. They are my passion. And everything else sits alongside. It doesn't sort of get poo-pooed as being rubbish orchids just because it's not a resting dendrobium. I like all the others, but those are just a bit special to me. And I think some of that is to do with the fact that if you don't give them that little bit of special treatment, then they won't blinking bloom. So you know, you've got to do your bit. Right, the little twinkle is going in quite a small pot. I could get it in the next size down, but I can see this one's going to grow. This has got "I'm going to grow quite quickly" written all over it, this little one. That's quite snug. You know, there won't be a lot of spare room, and it can stay in there for a year or so, depending on how much new growth it chucks out. We shall see. But this is going to be one of those where this area of the plant is highly unlikely to produce any strong new growth, because this is the original little pseudobulbs from when it was a seedling. So there's probably not going to be any growth from that area. So that's the area I want up against the side of the pot, the one that's least likely to produce new growth. So just at the moment, this is gently tucking the stuff down so that I can turn the pot round, because I'm right-handed, I work with that hand, and push that right back tight against there. Now I've got quite a lot of spare room. Now we can start. This is a very fine root system. If I chuck huge handfuls in, I will get quite large air pockets, so I'm doing it a bit at a time. Right, that's the front and the back done. Now we move around the sides and make sure they're not getting forgotten. Especially that one, because that's right up against the pot. So make sure we get some in under there. It's quite a nice little root system on this. It would be silly to pot it badly and lose it, or spoil it, or slow it up. Let's keep it growing, keep it going. I'm packing this in quite hard because it's a fine root system. The chunkier roots tend to be a bit more brittle. You go mad compacting your media and you'll snap them, or you'll break the tips off, or both. But this is a very branching root system on this type of Oncidium. It branches very easily. So if there is any damage, because I'm being a bit heavy-handed, which I don't think I am, then it won't be too bad. Right, I just want to push that back again, just get a little more down the front, and make sure that's got its space for its new growth. And once I've packed it down and I know it's all in round the roots, the bit that goes around the top of the plant, I don't actually press that down hard, because that's where the new roots are going to go. And they, you know, it'd be easier if they can get down in the media without battling with concrete, because you've whacked it in there so hard. So that'll do for that little one. That one will have a good water. No air gaps, a few roots near the edge of the pot so I can watch their progress. And another one that's been repotted with spikes, non-open blooms. Those are the ones that are most likely to blast if it's been disturbed too badly. I'm happy that they will carry on, swell and open. I hope I don't get proven wrong, or I should be quite annoyed. Right, so that's the little one done. Replenish the stocks. Now, these pots I'm trying to phase out, but the guy I normally buy my pots from, he's only got these crystal clear pots, and I don't like them. They encourage algae. They're too clear, if you know what I mean. You see, this one is opaque, not crystal clear. Now I want more of these types and get rid of these, but at the moment that's all I've got. Excuse me, I have tried to get some of the others, but I haven't tried very hard yet. I've only gone to the guy I normally get my pots from, and he hasn't got any, and that's about as far as I've got. I'll have a look and see. We've got a shed load of traders coming to probably what will be the next show. Is our 60th anniversary show in March, and we got a shed load of traders coming there. Maybe I can have a look at their websites before they come. Most of the traders that go to shows around the UK, they only bring plants. They very rarely bring accessories. So, but you might be able to persuade them to do that if you get in touch with them beforehand and pre-order, possibly prepay as well. Tight lot. Anyway, this one should fit in here quite cosy. That's what I'm hoping. I'm going to twist that, make sure the roots go down. That's a little trick as well that's useful to know. As you twist the roots, they start forming a ball nearer the middle, so there's not so many round the outside, so that when your media goes in, it is round the outside. So the only thing I've got to do with this is make sure that new growth has got plenty of room, which it will have. This one's going to get packed in quite hard compared with some. Wouldn't dream of doing this with something like a Paphiopedilum, because chances I'd snap the roots. They're quite brittle, and you don't get many, and if you break one off you could have lost like a quarter of your root system, so you need to go very careful with brittle roots. These aren't that brittle. They appear to be, but they're not. They're actually quite good. There's my new growth right at the front. And this may well turn out to be, like I've said, just Miltonia Sunset, which I've already got a massive plant. But when it's one of your favourite orchids, having a spare is not exactly a daft idea. You know, what would happen if I got some sort of bacterial infection in my wonderful plant that I've got now? I'd just lose it, wouldn't I? So it's nice to have a second go, if you know what I mean. And had that separate little new growth on this one been any good, which it wasn't, but had it been okay, then that would have got potted up and that could have gone to somebody else who hasn't got one, you know. So, but in this case, this is we'll see if we can get this going. Whether I keep both of them long term, I don't know, but at the moment I want this to get going. Now I'm just picking the moss out, because what I want now is some pretty big bits of bark to go around that new growth, so that it's got something for roots to go into, but it's still got air around it so that it doesn't go soggy. That's about it. Any air gaps? Nope. Well, that went in quite well. I'm surprised. Right, so that's that one done. I'm going to do a new tag for that one, because the one thing I cannot stand in my grow room is a tag with the price on it, especially when that's not the price that was actually paid for the plant. It's not even close. Divide it by 3 and you'll be closer. I think this was in the was in bloom and not in bloom anymore and I don't want it category, as far as the guy who sold it. I don't know who sold this one. I can have a good guess. And this one's a reasonable tag, and as it's a reasonable plant from this supplier, I'll keep that tag until such time as it fades, or, you know, I can't read it anymore, so I will keep that. If that had been a lousy root system because of that mould, I'd have dumped that and removed the name from the plant on the grounds that you sold me a Duff one. Well, I didn't buy it, but nonetheless a Duff one was sold, and so I'd remove the name from my grow room. But I'll keep it for now. As I say, it was a nice little root system and a lovely plant. It just had a load of mould in the pot. Right, there we go, that's that too. Those two done. And I've still got some left over, but not as much as I would have had if I hadn't taken some out. That's two nice little plants to grow on. Yeah, pleased with those. Is that what I think it is? No. I thought that was mealybugs. No. We're okay. Okay, that's that session done. As I say, that's probably the last kitchen session this year. I mean, as far as I know, I'm not buying any more plants, not this year anyway. And you know, we'll wait for the spring and see what the new season brings in. See what nice new hybrids turn up from the vendors, if they're still allowed to come to the UK. We shall see. Luckily, our 60th anniversary show is at the end of March. It's about 2 days, potentially, before Brexit kicks in. So for some of those traders, that might be their last visit. We shall see. It's all unknown at the moment. It's like living in Father Christmas land, isn't it? Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.